Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Clear the Air podcast here at the Center for Community Action and Environmental Justice. I'm joined here with Joaquin Castillejos, our organizing coordinator here, and two amazing individuals from ICIJ. I'm going to actually let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, hi, my name is Hector. I'm the political manager for the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice.
And I'm the lead organizer for ICIJ. Oh, my name is Esmeralda.
And, where do we start? This year has been a very, very tough year, a very interesting year.
And it's only January.
And we're less than 2 weeks into this administration, and we're already on our toes. Mm-hmm. So for everyone listening at this point, there were executive orders and just full mobilizations of ICE and Border Patrol to target our immigrant population. And here in the IE, I feel like there is a large concentration of active, how would you say that, mobilizations. And we're doing our best to keep an eye out, keep ourselves aware. So I know that ICIJ is doing a lot of rapid response work. So you want to go into exactly what you guys are doing and how you're getting the word out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just for the context, the IE is such a unique place because, one, we have the sort of liberal protections that the state of California offers, and we just have a more liberal, voting bloc in the state overall. So there are protections, but because we're only 100 miles from the border, we still kind of exist in this place where we have this blanket protection, but our proximity to the border still has immigration law enforcement with increased resources and authority. So we're kind of Texas and California, specifically here in the IE. So that's why we have such increased sightings of ICE, CBP, Border Patrol in the area. But the good thing is that we do have state law. We have local law that, offers sanctuary, limits the ways in which federal immigration enforcement can cooperate with our local law enforcement, regardless of how eager our local law enforcement is to cooperate with them. So I would just put that as how unique the IE is. But Esma, if you want to talk a little bit about the ways in which we're responding.
Yeah. So first, I'm going to plug in our hotline number just so that folks have it just in case.
Sure. Hit us with it.
Let's see. Our hotline number is 909-361-4588. And what this hotline is meant to do is to maybe address the I think that in the past, the hotline really was a way to respond to ICE enforcement in the region and to support people that were being at the incident, right there and then. But I think it's become something different now, where in a way now we're also trying to do some myth busting around the agencies that are in the area, and maybe just the confusion of the different agencies and folks mistaking different agencies in the region for ICE and CBP. And we're also trying to be proactive in the way of helping people not feel the fear mongering that is happening in our region. There's been a lot of reports of cops. Cops being mistaken for ICE or sheriffs being mistaken for ICE. CRT, right? CERT.
The Community Protective Center. I think it's SURF or SURF or something. Sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and they have green trucks, and so folks see these, they're like, oh my God, it's ICE, and then it starts circulating on the social media, and, folks don't want to leave their house. That's not what we want. We want folks to continue their lives. We want folks to continue going to work, want children to make it to school, and that's why it's really important to make sure that all the incidents in our region are correct and valid, to be sure that people can feel still safe to continue their life as usual. So the hotline does have first responders come out. These folks are trained to be able to assess the area in terms of canvassing, making sure it's the right agencies. If there's folks on the line that need support, that support is out to come out and help them. Maybe that's the first basis of our hotline. But really, it's really important to document maybe like patterns that we're seeing in the
And so for somebody who's calling the hotline, like what were some things that you'd want them to look out for that they might get confused, might be ICE or Border Patrol? Was there any like tall tale signals or signs versus like as you said, surf or CERT?
CERT, yeah.
Yeah. Was there any like special like if you see something, do you just call or do you have to actually do a little more investigating?
No, it's hard because they all look so similar, and that's intentional. I would say we encourage folks to call anyways, because even if you're sending us a picture, like we can tell the difference between them. So it's always in those cases is always better safe than sorry. I would say though, we see a lot of folks go like directly to social media, directly to Facebook to post pictures without doing that cross analysis of whether this is actually ICE or whether it's CBP or whether it's BP. So one of the biggest markers, I guess, because of litigation that ICAJ was actually an organizational plaintiff for, ICE has to display that. What they used to do is they would want to pose as police to confuse people, right? As their local police agency or law enforcement officers. So they would wear vests that would say police. Now those vests have to clearly say ICE, just as big as it says police, or Department of Homeland Security. So you'll see those on their vests. And if you see like, I don't know, Pomona Police Department or something like that, like that's clearly not ICE. That's that city's police department. So that's one of the ways to distinguish them. Most local law enforcement use blue, obviously. Yep. So like Border Patrol's in green. So that's a way to you can differentiate Border Patrol. But in terms of the trucks, like there's a U.S. What is the agency? USDA.
Oh, UCDA or UDA.
I think it's USDA.
Yeah.
They have green trucks too. So then sometimes people will confuse that for Border Patrol.
ICE.
So just reading, like it's sometimes they'll say like law enforcement really big, but they'll have like their like emblem or whatever, and in small letters it'll say Border Patrol or Customs and Border Patrol. Customs and Border Patrol, their trucks are normally green with like they're white with like a blue stripe. Sorry, not green. So it is hard to distinguish them. We have graphics on our social media that show pictures of like, this is the kind of uniforms that CBP wears. This is the kind of uniforms that Border Patrol wears, that ICE wears. For ICE, it's obviously a little bit easier because it'll say ICE or Department of Homeland Security. Border Patrol is easier because they're in green. So yeah, it is hard to distinguish them, but always call the hotline and send us pictures. That's the biggest thing that we always ask for is pictures with a timestamp and location.
Got it. Yeah. So that's huge. I hear you mentioned your social media. What kind of like resources do you have on your social media that the public should know about? And I mean, other than your hotline, was there any other resources that you provide for the community that would be very, very helpful?
So many. Yeah. I mean, our social media team is like losing their mind. Yeah. We have like 5 graphics going up every day.
It's
a lot.
It's popping.
So we have like graphics that, like, for example, pictures of how to distinguish different law enforcement agents. How to distinguish between their cars or the kind of cars that they use. We have like basic know your rights graphics that are easy to share to your story. And they're pretty general in that, like, whenever you encounter immigration enforcement, like you have the right to stay silent, don't sign anything, speak to your lawyer, all of that stuff. And then we also have just updates that we are able to confirm through the hotline. So like if there's people calling in for a specific sighting and we are able to confirm that, we'll post that to our social media with a timestamp and all that. And then also just general updates that we do. We had a graphic go out after the slate of immigration-related executive orders that President Trump signed. We had graphics going out specific for like teachers and parents of students to let them know how sanctuary still applies to all schools in California, regardless of what the Department of Homeland Security has done. So we have like a diverse range of graphics. We also do like quick little videos. We were at the Riverside County Board of Supervisors meeting earlier this week where they passed a policy to kind of, it wasn't a sanctuary policy, but it was to get to a sanctuary policy, essentially. So we did like quick little recap videos and stuff like that. So that's been the basis of what we're doing right now, I would say.
Yeah, and outside from social media, we actually now have a legal team. Yay. Who I think they've been active for about a month, really. So maybe with the administration too. But folks are able to call for at least a consultation to understand if there's any different types of relief for them. And maybe our team can take on their case. So I know that's
That's
really,
amazing.
Yeah, really important.
That's
resource.
awesome.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that our legal team has they're called DOJ accredited representatives, meaning they have accreditation from the Department of Justice. The funny thing is that they actually got the news that they were like officially accredited on election day, so that was like a perfect sign.
Yeah.
They're gearing up for something for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of switch gears here and direct.
Well, I had a quick question.
Go ahead.
Like running back to the Rapid Response Network, I know that must have been like a quick turnaround with the new administration coming in. Like, how has it been growing that network? And are y'all looking for more folks? Like, what does it look like right now?
Always looking for more folks.
Always in all regions,
Yeah.
especially like, let's say you're out like in Paris, Beaumont. We need folks that are out, like not in the concentrated areas because it's so hard to reach people out there. So if we're out there.
Yeah, on our social media too. Like we have the link to sign up to volunteer. We need folks who can be dispatchers, like who can be on call. Essentially the way our hotline works is kind of cool in that like if you're a dispatcher, we can like hook you up and we can put you on call and you don't have to like be anywhere specific. Like you can be out doing your day and then the calls are just going to filter to your cell. Mm-hmm. So that's super easy. If you're available like 4 hours a day or something like that, we can have you as a dispatcher. But then we also need people throughout the IE who can be like trusted observers to go out to this. So if like we get 10 calls or something from a possible sighting in Paris, we know that we have 5 people within 30 miles of that area that we can call. And if they're available, they can go check it out. In the beginning, it's kind of just been like ICIJ staff, like where do you guys live? And like how close, like I live in Corona and we would get calls from Jurupa. So it's like, I have to drive over to Jurupa or something like that. Thankfully now we're tapping into some people who participate during the past Trump administration. We have a lot more people who are excited to join and help in any way they can. So that's kind of loosening our responsibilities in that. And hopefully we get even more people involved in that. Yeah.
Where can people sign up if they're interested?
So on our website, we have the sign up link, ic4ij.org, the number 4, and then our social media too.
They can also call the hotline and tell them that they want to volunteer. Yeah.
Awesome. Can you drop the number again just for folks who heard it the first time?
Yes.
You can call and text the hotline too.
Text and we receive pictures.
Yes.
So 909-361-4588.
We'll put a graphic
voicemail.
up here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Graphic right here.
It's right here,
So I'm gonna shift gears and aim this a little bit at Joaquin. When it comes to the organizing space, how does this new administration and these new, how would you say, agendas affect your organizing capacity?
I feel like within the community, folks are more on alert or more cautious of, what kind of spaces they go to, where they're going. And it does affect it a little bit because a lot of our work mobilizing is going to county meetings or city councils or having our community meetings in different cities. And with reports of, ICE here or ICE, we saw ICE in this area, folks might be a little bit more cautious to come out. But what I've seen personally is that a lot of folks have been, becoming more involved, trying to get more resources to be able to share with their own community. And I think that really speaks to like all the work that not only CCAJ has been doing, but all the organizations in the Inland Empire to like build up leadership. So when these times came, like folks were ready for that, And I think we're seeing that, people are they're ready for whatever's coming, and thanks to the work of ICIJ that is sharing those resources, helping the partners be ready with those resources. Like next week we're having a Know Your Rights workshop at the office, February 6th at 6 p.m. here at CCAJ office. If you're interested, you're welcome to come by.
That one's open to community.
And then y'all are also giving us a rapid response training. So like we're collaborating, we're bringing the resources, and we're getting the community involved. So I think that's, it's a little bit scary. I'm not going to lie. These first few weeks, in the environmental space, Trump has, obviously he said, drill, baby, drill. So all our progress in the past 4 years and more, has been kind of like dismantled slowly. Or actually quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say slowly.
Not slowly. Yeah, it's been fast.
Yeah.
He's been coming at the EPA. He just put the director, a former oil executive, someone who's been like adamant in supporting everything Trump does. So we're in times right now where we have to really stand up and protect everything we've fought for. And I think if we continue to, collaborate, if we continue to strengthen these bonds, we'll be able to do that,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's something that we need to talk about, is that these are not times where we should be scared. These should be times where we're banding together and we become stronger, because, through these trials and tribulations, we build community power, and that's when we start making progress.
Yeah.
And though, yes, it is very scary that there's things that we're going to have to navigate very cautiously, I think that at the end of the day, it will make us stronger as individuals. So, I think that.
And I would like to make a shout out to all the organizers in the IE. It doesn't matter like what organization you work or what background. Like right now, all that experience that you have, this is the moment, when it's needed, like in the Rapid Response Network, to bring the resources to the community. Like organizers are needed right now, and I know it's hard, there's burnout definitely. But this is what community is about, to like be able to bring your strengths. Everyone has their own strengths. And so you're an organizer, we're calling you out, come join the movement, sign up to the Rapid Response Network and support, the organizers, support ICIJ.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, getting to a little deeper into it, I want to learn more about where we see ourselves going in the future. Like it's been 2 weeks and things are already nutty. Mm-hmm. So where do you see our work leading us to? And I'm going to push on to you guys.
I can maybe say like politically, and then you can maybe say like community wise. I think politically, that's the $1 million question of where do we go from here? I think people from the political party who have normally been allies to the kind of issues that we work on are questioning whether they should continue to be allies, how strongly they should continue to be allies. And I think it just comes from, we've had a Trump administration in the past, but this feels so much different because people really feel like they got their butts kicked. Like they really feel like, they call it a mandate for the new president. I don't think anyone really believes that it's a mandate. But there's that sense that they got their butts kicked, that they need to roll back on some of the progress that was made, especially during the beginning of the Biden administration. If you think back to the first Trump administration, the day after, there was a women's march nationally with thousands and thousands of people going out into the streets across the entire country. There was nothing like that this year. And there's just been a questioning of how far more do we need to go in terms of progressive policy? How much of it do we need to rescind from? Because there's a genuine feeling amongst the public that those are not popular, that being woke is not popular anymore, that being progressive is not popular anymore. So that's $1 million question. Who's going to come out on top, whether we continue to progress or whether we, rescind all of that to kind of appeal to an electorate that seems to be becoming more and more conservative, or at least based on this past election. I know that does not answer your question at all, because I think obviously in my opinion, it's continuing to progress even more. But it seems like that is not the prevailing opinion right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's kind of in a weird predicament, because not only are we looking at an administration that is going against what we had originally been allies with, but if you are continuing to be an ally, you risk exposure to retaliation. Mm-hmm. Now that's a whole new element that we did not have in 2020, where President Trump is getting his lickbacks. He's getting all riled up to try to, dismantle all of these organizations that he claims are on a witch hunt for him. Mm-hmm. So that exposure for being an ally is now increased for organizations. And it's like, how do we negotiate that? In terms of like funding, grants, stuff like that, without jeopardizing, the safety of staff and other people? I mean, that's a very honest question to have. It's like, how much are you willing to stick to your guns if, the administration is telling you that you're going to be dismantled if you do?
Yeah.
So, that's the future. I know that's a very, very dark road to like explore, but as we move forward, I think that it's going to be more of calling out that bluff because of, as far as an executive order goes, it's still not Congress and it's still not the Constitution. So it's like how, like we're going to be okay. At the end of the day, there are more of us than there are of them, as in community and like, how we survive together. So I know, how about you, Esmeralda? How you feeling?
Yeah, like even though I hear Hector say that maybe there's a little bit more hesitancy, I do think I feel like I've heard so much more of folks that maybe would have not been interested in protecting spaces to be interested in protecting their space and making sure that like community space continues to be available for undocumented folks throughout the administration. Or I think like last night I was at a community meeting, and one of the first things that like came up was like, when are we having the next march? Like, I'm angry and I wanted to show that I'm angry. And so like, I think something that I'm seeing are people are taking these steps to make sure that they're safe, make sure that whoever they bring is safe, to make sure their neighbors are safe, which has been really great. And there's been so much educating. So I think maybe like we're just being like silent and like deadly, like we're just creeping up, like we're making sure that we're doing it right. And there's been so many like, it's like, I think folks are also starting to recognize that this fight is so intersectional in the fact of like y'all are doing policies to make sure that your folks that come in here are safe, or like there's folks on the criminal justice side who are just so invested now in making sure that our undocumented community folks are not being transferred or are not being flagged. And so it's been like, I think it's been really a wake-up call too to so many folks outside of directly impacted folks.
Yeah, and that's why I love ICIJ so much, because having that lens of community and community organizing is so important. Most of my experience is in politics, so sometimes I'm just so blind to whatever community is actually feeling because you're so focused on what's going on politically. But seeing that is incredibly inspiring, and my wish is that the political sphere, so that starts to trickle into the political sphere to empower more people to continue the good fight. I mean, we saw in Bakersfield what happened in Bakersfield when there were ICE raids. There was protests on the streets for 4 days straight, and there was not like a community coalition or whatever that was out there organizing. That was just them. Yeah. That was just people in that community who came out and were out there for 4 days straight.
And people were released.
People were released.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
The power of community.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's really good to see.
Yeah, and speaking on, detention and stuff, I know Shutdown Adelanto is just shifting gears a little bit, but Shutdown Adelanto has been a huge campaign for ICIJ in the past years, and we got so close last year to shutting it down. Where is that at? Like, where are we going? What is that looking like?
Yeah, so if y'all have been listening to maybe some of the podcasts we released with ICIJ, we've been really trying to look at it in a framework of just transitioning and making sure that healthier and cleaner jobs are coming to the city of Adelanto too. But I think we actually have some updates. The facility has been potentially useful to the administration, for the Biden administration at least. And unfortunately, we lost litigation, or not even lost litigation. A settlement has been done through a litigation that was going on. And so the intake ban that was not allowing folks to come into the facility has been lifted. And so this means that this facility is actually now going to be useful for the Trump administration, and which means that there's a physical space in our neighborhood again to be caging folks. Yeah. So then what does that mean for us? That means that we need to make sure that folks that are making sure that everyone in our region is very educated about their rights, making sure that folks get consultations, because even if you know your rights, your specific situation, it's still case by case, since everyone might have different statuses. Making sure everyone knows what their rights are, but also making sure that we continue talking to the folks that are being detained, following them through the process, documenting any violations that are happening within the facility, making sure that folks' needs are being met, helping them also, maybe if they choose to organize themselves, support them through that. And so I don't know what to really expect, because I've been fortunate enough to be working on this campaign during the facility having low numbers. And so, do you want to help me out?
Yeah. No, I would say that goes back to what I said in the beginning, the unique context of the IE. Not only are we within 100 miles from the southern border, not only are we in a region that leans more conservative and has elected officials that reflect that, but we also have the biggest detention center on the West Coast in our backyard in the high desert. Adelanto, it's a facility. The ICE processing center itself is a facility of over 1,900 beds. And one of the things I like to remind people is that when President Trump signed that slate of executive orders on his first day relating to immigration, reinstating mandatory detention, ending catch and release, all of those things, that is in aims of his mass deportation plans. We haven't seen those mass deportation plans really come to fruition right now. And some people are like, you see, it's not that bad. President Obama deported more people. It's not that bad right now because they don't have the capacity for it to be that bad. They're not choosing for it not to be that bad. They would very much like it to be mass deportations already.
It's also only been 1 month.
Yeah. They don't have the funding. Congress right now is working on an appropriations bill that's going to expand that funding so that appropriation bills come from the House of Representatives. They have a majority in the House, a MAGA majority at that. So that is very much going to happen. And that will increase funding in terms of paying for these flights to deport people, paying for more beds for detention, and hiring more personnel to be able to crack down on all these little areas of immigration enforcement they haven't been able to because they don't have the capacity for it. And so I'm sorry to say this, but it will get worse.
Yes.
Because all of the funding and capacity restrictions that they have right now are going to go away very soon as Congress is able to increased appropriations. He just said yesterday that he wants to open Guantanamo Bay for 30,000. They want to build a facility out there to hold 30,000 migrants. And so bringing back to Adelanto, that was a facility that, like Esmeralda said, had an intake ban, which didn't allow for new people to be brought into that facility. That was a COVID era intake ban that was placed because Geo Group, the private prison company that runs that facility, was unable to really provide quality or sufficient
Honestly,
what's the word that I'm looking
it's
on?
not even that they could even provide the quality care that folks needed. It's because they refused to.
They refused
didn't want
to. Yes,
to.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Garth. They refused to protect the people in their custody from COVID-19. Obviously, the circumstances of COVID-19 no longer exist. That's why the Biden administration moved to lift that intake ban. The settlement was reached not so long ago. And the Department of Homeland Security has decided to extend the contract for the Adelanto ICE Processing Center. So all of those things combined means we have more detention capacity in our own region for folks to be detained just in our backyard.
Yeah. I wanted also to bring up that yesterday, I believe, the Lake and Riley Act was signed.
Yeah.
And the San Bernardino County Sheriff and Riverside County Sheriff signed that bill along with Trump. They were at Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know the San Bernardino one was there.
Yeah, San Bernardino County.
What does it mean for that they signed on?
Yeah, like
they signed on.
Y'all are like looking at.
Yeah, the Lincoln Riley Act. So for folks who don't know, Lincoln Riley was a young woman who was murdered by someone who was not a lawful resident of the United States. Republicans in Congress have used this story to really start to scapegoat all immigrants as violent or threats to public safety, which we know is not true. And it's unfortunate that this story has been used for those aims. what's interesting about this bill is that it calls for the mandatory deportation of any unlawful resident of the United States, regardless, or accused of a crime, regardless of whether they've been actually convicted of that crime. So for the basic ideas of due process that almost every person in this country knows and understands and is part of our Constitution, which, by the way, our Constitution does not just protect U.S. citizens. The Constitution protects anyone who's in the U.S. It's just a grave violation of all the ideas of due process that we hold. And so that passed. The president signed it. That passed also, by the way, with the support of many Democratic House representatives and senators, when we go back to the idea of allies that we thought we had that are now switching. And so that is also going to increase the amount of people who are being detained, going back to they need more capacity for detaining this amount of people. That is going to increase that significantly. We're going to see thousands of more people who are going to be detained and deported, unfortunately. In terms of the Riverside and San Bernardino County sheriffs signing onto it, that's mostly symbolic. They don't need their signatures. The president's the only one who actually signs bills that are passed by Congress. But I think it's intentful. It's intended to send a signal to the communities in San Bernardino, Riverside County, that their sheriffs are actively going for them. And that's really scary. Thankfully, we have sanctuary law in California that restricts them from actually cooperating with federal immigration enforcement to carry out those plans, but it's still really scary. And to see your own elected officials go out of their way to be so purposefully cruel and evil, it's extremely scary. I mean, I tell people all the time, people ask, what is the point of all this? What is the end game for this? The point is the cruelty. This is a PR stunt. The point is to be as cruel as evil and make it look as bad as it can. And optically, the sheriff signing on to that's what it's accomplishing, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I mean, Chad Bianco's been known to be very anti-immigrant. So, you look at his social media in general, it's just complete, disregard for the truth. So I don't know. When I see things like that, I think exactly what you're thinking. It's a PR stunt. It's definitely just symbolic to scare our community, and it's unfortunate because realistically, we should be empowering our community. We shouldn't be trying to terrorize them in that sort of sense. Yeah. Anybody who lives here, you know what I mean? So, wrapping up, I just want to pick your guys' brains and if you had one message to give people right now who might be scared, who might be, just afraid of what's to come in the next 3 years or 4 years, what would be something that you can give them, one piece of advice, maybe a resource that might help them get through this? Yeah.
I think I would say get connected to these organizations that are doing this work. I think my whole life, I remember my father being I don't know how to handle these situations, and I don't know where to find resources. And it's because we didn't know these type of networks existed. And so I would really say get connected because, even if something that you're looking for specifically can't be fixed, you'll still find community. You'll still find people who are willing to be there for you in other ways. And it feels so much, I think it's really healing to be with people who feel you are sympathetic and just want to be with you. So connect. If it's not with us, with someone, with one of the organizations that are doing this type of work to make sure you find community.
Yeah. And I would just say too, I think it's important to always, there's something that I always keep in mind is that the fights for social justice have always been undermined by a more popularly conservative mindset. We've always been the minority. Yeah. I think, especially for young folks and for me, we think back to 2020 when we were in this magical woke world where we had white members of Congress going out of their way to be racially sensitive and all that. We were really in a world where that was a unique situation because of the pandemic, because of the murder of George Floyd, because of a lot of racial and social reckoning that was going on at that time. But that's kind of an outlier. It's not consistent with how history has always shaped out. And so the fight has always existed. It will continue to exist. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's easier. But there are people who came before us who had way harder fights, who actually, died, risked their entire lives to do the kind of work that we continue to do. And so that always keeps me going, and knowing that people have come before you, they've done it in worse situations. And you have an entire community of people who are willing to back you to continue that fight.
Awesome. Couldn't have said it better myself. Absolutely amazing. And one more time, where can people reach out for resources and the hotline? I'd like to give them that one more time.
Yeah. So this is our rapid response hotline. So this is if you see like sightings, so be 909-361-4588. We can also call this hotline if you want to be a volunteer. If you're looking to get connected with our get connected with our legal hotline and get a consultation for your case, it'll be 909-474-9996. Either way, you can call both numbers and enter time.
Yeah, and then find us online at IC4ij.org and on social media at IC4ij.
Awesome. Just want to say thank you for coming out and sharing your time with us.
This is fun.
Yeah, I had a good time. Goodbye, everybody.
Joining us.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us.